Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of clinical precision.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like engineering.
Right. Like if you break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged white line, the doctor points to it, and that's that. You have a definitive answer.
It's binary, which, is incredibly comforting to the human brain. We prefer our biology to fit into neat, observable boxes.
Exactly. Like awake means the engine is running. Sleep means the engine is off.
Right, the on-off switch.
Yeah. For most of us, sleep is it's just the absence of being awake, like a biological power down sequence so we don't overheat.
But based on the stack of research we are looking at today, that X-ray machine is completely broken.
Yeah, it really is.
We're treating sleep like a passive void, when the reality is that the biological landscape of a sleeping body is, well, it's violently active.
Violently active. I like that.
It is entirely the opposite of inactive. And that fundamental misunderstanding is why so many people, from weekend warriors to corporate executives, are inadvertently sabotaging their own physical and cognitive potential.
Because we all know sleep is important, right? We've heard it a million times.
Right.
But today, we are looking at sleep not just as rest, but as the ultimate, completely legal, performance-enhancing drug.
The ultimate biohack.
Exactly. So our deep dive today is built around a massive, highly comprehensive 2025 medical review.
And this is a really dense one.
Oh, incredibly dense. It's titled Sleep and Athletic Performance, a multidimensional review of physiological and molecular mechanisms.
A mouthful, but the data is incredible.
It really is. We are going to decode the literal cellular mechanics of what happens when you sleep, what physically breaks when you don't, and how elite athletes manipulate their biological clocks for peak performance.
Because the margins at that level are razor thin.
Right. And whether you are currently training for a marathon or just, trying to survive a brutal week at the office, we're going to show you how to apply these same strategies to your own life.
So to really grasp the damage of losing sleep, we first have to tear down the idea of a shutdown and look at the actual architecture.
It's a blueprint, basically.
Exactly. Sleep is a meticulously choreographed sequence. A healthy adult cycles through these stages 4 to 6 times a night.
And each cycle lasts, what, roughly 90 minutes?
Roughly 90 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it all begins with the N1 phase.
Okay, so N1, that's the head nodding phase, right?
Yeah.
Like you're watching a movie, your eyelids get heavy, and your brain starts producing theta waves.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You are just starting to lose awareness of the physical world.
Yeah.
But N1 is fleeting.
It's just the waiting room.
Yeah, the real heavy lifting begins when you drop into N2.
Okay.
This is where the brain starts firing off these rhythmic electrical bursts called sleep spindles, along with K-complexes.
Sleep spindles, that sounds very sci-fi.
It does, but think of the thalamus, which is the brain's sensory relay station, literally locking the doors.
Oh, wow.
These spindles act as a neurochemical shield. They block out external noise so the brain can work uninterrupted.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because N2 isn't just about blocking noise. The review highlights that N2 is where motor memory consolidation happens.
Yes, this is a huge point.
So N2 is essentially like hitting save on a Word document for your physical skills.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Like if you're a tennis player who spent 3 hours practicing a backhand, or you just spent the afternoon trying to learn a new chord on the guitar,
Right.
your brain is actively cementing the physical mechanics of those techniques into your neural pathways during this specific stage.
You're permanently etching the software into the hard drive.
Wow.
Because during the day, those motor pathways are actually really fragile. The N2 spindles essentially replay the physical movements you learned over and over at warp speed.
Well, you're completely still.
Exactly. It's strengthening the synaptic connections without you moving a single muscle.
And once the software is saved, I guess we move on to the hardware.
Right. The physical repair.
Which brings us to N3, which is deep, slow wave sleep.
This stage is dominated by massive rolling delta waves. If you look at an EEG during N3, it looks like an ocean swell.
Just huge peaks and valleys.
Yeah, and this is when the physiological magic really happens. The brain triggers a massive systemic release of growth hormone and testosterone.
So N3 is like taking the body to the mechanic for deep engine repair.
Yes, and the reason it does that is deeply tied to inflammation.
Okay.
During the day, Physical exertion causes micro tears in your muscle fibers. It spikes inflammatory markers in your blood,
Mhm.
particularly one called interleukin-6 or IL-6.
Which is pretty standard after a hard workout.
Normal wear and tear, right.
Mm.
But during M3, your body aggressively suppresses that IL-6. It turns down the inflammation so the growth hormone can actually synthesize new proteins and repair the tissue.
So if you shortchanged your N3 sleep, your body basically stays locked in a state of high inflammation.
Exactly. You literally cannot repair the damage you did that day.
And that sets the stage for the final act of the cycle pretty well. REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. And the review makes it very clear that REM is a completely different beast.
Oh, it is entirely paradoxical.
How so?
Well, in REM, your brain activity looks almost identical to being wide awake.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you get these high-frequency synchronized theta and gamma oscillations. The brain is furiously active.
But the body isn't.
Right. It's processing emotional memories and driving creativity, but your brainstem actually paralyzes your voluntary muscles so you don't act out your dreams.
That is wild. So REM is like a tactical brainstorming session for the brain.
Essentially, yes.
The body is paralyzed, but the mind is playing 3D chess. I mean, this is where an athlete synthesizes new tactics, right? Like figuring out how to read an opponent's defense based on the chaotic patterns they saw in the field that afternoon.
Exactly. You're taking raw data and turning it into wisdom.
I love that.
And when you view sleep as this highly structured construction site, saving motor skills, repairing muscle fibers, synthesizing tactics, you start to realize that cutting your sleep short isn't just making you groggy.
You're physically halting the construction.
You're firing the crew.
Which makes me wonder what happens when the mechanics don't show up for their shift at all. The review dives into the molecular price of pulling an all-nighter, and honestly, the cellular data here is terrifying.
It really is sobering.
What exactly is happening inside a cell when we completely deprive ourselves of this recovery window?
The 2025 review isolates a very specific, alarming mechanism here. When researchers combine 24-hour sleep deprivation with intense anaerobic exercise.
Which sounds awful, by the way.
Right, terrible idea. But the stress was so overwhelming that it triggered apoptosis.
Wait, losing sleep literally tells our cells to die.
It initiates programmed cell death. Yes.
Oh, wow.
The research identified that severe sleep deprivation upregulates, meaning it actively turns on pro-apoptotic genes like BX and CCR2.
Okay, BX and CCR2.
Right. To visualize this, think of the mitochondria as the battery of your cell.
Sure.
The BATX gene essentially pokes holes in the mitochondrial membrane.
Oh, that does sound good.
It permeabilizes it, so the battery leaks, the cell loses its energy source, and it breaks down from the inside out.
While at the same time, the lack of sleep is turning off the genes that are supposed to protect the cell, right?
Exactly that. It downregulates the anti-apoptotic and circadian genes, specifically BCL2 and BMAL1.
So you are simultaneously arming the self-destruct sequence and disabling the cellular shields.
It's a two-front war on your own cells.
Okay, so if an athlete or, one of our listeners is forced into a state of sleep deprivation, is there any way to stop this cellular damage?
That's the vital question.
Because let's be real, sometimes an all-nighter is unavoidable.
Oh, sure.
You have a newborn crying at 3 a.m., a massive project due, or you're an athlete crossing 6 time zones for a tournament. You can't always just choose to sleep.
No, you can't. But the source data points to a fascinating biochemical intervention.
Okay, what is it?
The researchers found that supplementing with 1,000 milligrams a day of L-arginine over an 8-week period actually reversed these pro-apoptotic effects.
Wait, L-arginine?
Yeah, it's an amino acid.
Yeah.
It acts as a precursor to nitric oxide, which is a crucial cellular signaling molecule.
Okay.
By boosting nitric oxide pathways, the supplement effectively signaled the protective BCL2 and BMAL1 genes to turn back on.
Wow.
It mitigated the cellular stress even in the absence of adequate sleep.
That is an incredible biological hack, just brute forcing the protective genes back on.
It is, but it's not a free pass. It's not just the muscle tissue breaking down. The brain is absorbing a massive hit, too.
Right. I was reading the section on cognitive degradation, and it pointed out that even a single night of sleep deprivation accelerates the accumulation of beta amyloid in the hippocampus.
And we know beta amyloid is a neurotoxic protein heavily associated with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease.
Right. And to put that into perspective for you listening, beta amyloid is essentially the metabolic exhaust created when your neurons fire.
Right, it's waste.
When you're awake and thinking, your brain is generating this toxic byproduct. And if you skip sleep, it just pulls in the hippocampus, which is your memory center.
It just sits there.
Yeah. I imagine that's why a marathon runner might lose their coordination in the final miles, or why you might stare blankly at a spreadsheet during a 4 p.m. meeting after a bad night's sleep.
Yeah, your reaction times are physically blocked by cellular exhaust.
You're swimming in metabolic junk.
You really are. And physically, the cardiovascular system goes into overdrive too.
Oh, right.
Staying awake for 24 hours significantly elevates resting blood pressure and locks the sympathetic nervous system into a high drive state.
So you are trapped in a biological fight or flight loop.
Exactly.
And the part that really surprised me was that the data shows taking a 2-hour nap the next afternoon doesn't reset that cardiovascular strain.
No, it doesn't.
The blood pressure stays elevated.
Because you can't just trick the autonomic nervous system. The stress hormones have already saturated the bloodstream.
That's too late.
Yeah. Which naturally begs a massive biological question.
Mm-hmm.
If wakefulness is this toxic, why is the brain so vulnerable to it?
Right.
Why does it need this offline time so desperately to clear the exhaust?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because the review introduces this concept called the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, or SHY, proposed by Tononi and Sorelli.
Right, SHY.
And it essentially argues that sleep is the physical tax we pay for learning.
It's the price of neuroplasticity.
Okay, break that down.
Look at it this way. When you are awake, your brain is constantly interacting with the environment, right?
Right.
Every email you read, every conversation you navigate, every time you practice a physical movement, your neurons are firing and building new synaptic connections to encode that information.
But the skull has physical limitations. I mean, you can't just keep building new roads indefinitely.
Exactly. You'd run out of physical space, and more importantly, you'd run out of metabolic energy.
Because the brain is an energy hog.
Yeah. Oh, it already consumes 20% of your body's energy. If you only ever built new connections, the synaptic network would saturate. It would just become white noise.
Just overwhelming static.
Right. So according to the SHY model, sleep is when the brain actively audits these connections.
Okay.
Through a process called synaptic downscaling, it goes through and chemically weakens the synapses that aren't critical.
I see. It's like pruning a bonsai tree or clearing your computer's browser cache.
Yes, exactly like clearing a cache.
You have to delete the junk files overnight so the system doesn't crash the next morning.
Right.
You snip away the memory of where you parked your car 3 days ago or the mundane small talk you made at the coffee shop, so the strong branches, the vital memories, the new physical skills have the metabolic space to thrive and grow the next day.
That pruning mechanism is fundamental to human intelligence.
Wow.
If you deny the brain that downscaling period, the network is simply too saturated to absorb anything new. You read the same sentence 5 times because there is literally no synaptic room to store it.
It just bounces off. So if the architecture of sleep is this critical for clearing out cellular exhaust and pruning memories, we have to talk about the things in the modern world that constantly disrupt it.
Oh, the external enemies.
Right. Travel, diet, the way we live our lives. How do elite teams fight back against these disruptors?
Well, transmeridian travel crossing time zones is arguably the biggest disruptor because it completely uncouples your internal biological clock from the external light-dark cycle.
You're just completely out of sync.
Yeah. But the direction of travel changes the physiological burden entirely.
How so?
The review cites a 20-year study of Major League Baseball teams analyzing how travel impacts win rates.
20 years of data, that's huge.
It's massive, and it revealed that eastward travel is significantly more destructive of performance than westward travel.
Which makes sense when you look at the mechanics of the circadian rhythm.
Right.
Because the human internal clock actually runs slightly longer than 24 hours.
That's exactly.
So if you travel west, say from New York to LA, you are just extending your day.
You're just staying up later.
Right, you're delaying the rhythm, which the body can adapt to relatively easily. But traveling east forces you to advance the clock.
Which is much harder.
You're asking your body to fall asleep earlier and wake up earlier, which completely fights our natural biology.
You're trying to force the engine to cool down while the biochemical signals are still telling it to rev up.
That sounds miserable.
It is. And the MLB study put a hard number on that biological friction. Teams traveling east experienced a 3.5% decrease in home wins.
A 3.5% drop in professional sports is astronomical.
It's massive.
That's the margin between winning a championship and missing the playoffs entirely, and it's dictated purely by the biological clock.
Completely.
So how does diet mitigate this? Because I've seen athletes pounding specific foods before bed, hoping to, biohack their sleep.
Diet absolutely plays a role because meal timing and composition act as zeitgebers.
Zeitgeber.
Right. They are external cues that can synchronize your peripheral biological clocks.
Mm.
The researchers looked heavily at carbohydrates. Consuming high glycemic index, or GI, carbs 2 to 4 hours before bed actually speeds up sleep onset.
Wait, why does a bowl of white rice or pasta make you fall asleep faster?
It comes down to insulin and amino acids.
Mm.
A high GI meal spikes your blood sugar, causing a massive release of insulin.
Okay.
That insulin clears most amino acids from your bloodstream, except for tryptophan.
Ah, the Thanksgiving turkey chemical.
Exactly. With the competition gone, tryptophan easily crosses the blood-brain barrier, where it's converted into serotonin and ultimately melatonin.
Which is the hormone that initiates sleep.
Exactly.
But the review noted a pretty serious trade-off here, didn't it?
It did, yes.
While the high GI carbs help initiate sleep, studies on state-level basketball players showed it fragmented the actual architecture of their sleep.
Yes.
Like, they fell asleep faster, but the quality of the M3 and REM cycles was degraded.
You're trading depth for speed. It's a compromise.
Not always worth it.
No. The review found far more profound benefits looking at polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically the omega-3s EPA and DHA found in fish.
Okay, I have to jump in here.
Yeah.
Because the review cites a study on Syrian hamsters to prove this omega-3 point.
It does.
And, I mean, I've seen athletes taking handfuls of fish oil pills, but what does a hamster's biology have to do with a 250-pound linebacker's sleep cycle? It feels like a massive leap.
It sounds absurd on the surface, I know.
Yeah.
But in chronobiology, Syrian hamsters are actually the gold standard.
Really? Why?
They possess incredibly precise, highly observable circadian rhythms. Researchers use them to isolate the exact molecular pathways before looking at humans.
Okay, that makes sense.
In this specific study, researchers found that depriving the hamsters of omega-3s caused their nocturnal melatonin secretion to plummet by a staggering 52%.
Over half of their sleep hormone just vanished.
Yes, and the mechanism behind it is fascinating. DHA, a key omega-3, is highly concentrated in the pineal gland.
Which is the tiny structure in the brain responsible for producing melatonin.
Exactly. Without enough DHA, the pineal gland physically struggles to synthesize and release the hormone.
Oh, wow.
So when you map that back to our 250-pound linebacker, or to anyone listening, it highlights that maintaining omega-3 levels isn't just about joint health.
Right.
It is a structural requirement for your brain's sleep signaling system.
That structural requirement makes the hamster data very relevant, actually.
Highly relevant.
And if we're talking about diet, we have to talk about the most heavily abused psychoactive substance in the world.
Oh boy, caffeine.
Caffeine.
The clinical guidelines here are going to be tough for a lot of people to swallow.
Lay it on us.
Caffeine works by aggressively binding to adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine is a chemical that builds up while you're awake, creating sleep pressure.
Okay.
Caffeine blocks those receptors, essentially masking the fatigue.
So it doesn't give you energy, it just blindfolds your brain so you can't feel how tired you actually are.
Precisely. And the data shows that to protect your sleep architecture, optimal caffeine intake should remain under 1.5 cups a day.
A cup and a half?
Yep. Consuming more than that is unequivocally linked to compromised sleep quality and even an elevated risk of disordered breathing during sleep in endurance athletes.
Under a cup and a half. That is gonna hurt some feelings.
It definitely is.
But it sets up the ultimate question. If an athlete or an executive is battling jet lag, avoiding caffeine, and fighting cellular exhaust, can they just pull a quick liberty to fix it?
A quick fix.
Let's talk about sleep loading and the pharmacology trap.
Right. Sleep loading, or banking sleep, is one of the most powerful non-pharmacological interventions we have.
Banking sleep.
Yeah. The review examined a landmark study on collegiate basketball players who were instructed to extend their sleep to 10 hours a night for a period of 5 to 7 weeks.
10 hours a night for nearly 2 months. Most people would say they simply don't have the time for that.
It's a huge time commitment.
But the ROI is insane.
Staggering. By banking that extra recovery time, their sprint speeds noticeably increased, and their three-point and free throw shooting accuracy went up by over 9%.
A 9% increase in elite athletic accuracy just from laying in bed longer.
Literally just sleeping.
But for the listener who physically cannot get 10 hours a night, what are the rules for napping? Because a nap seems like a quick fix, but there are biological landmines there.
Timing is absolutely everything.
Okay.
The physiological sweet spot for restoring power and cognitive function after sleep restriction is a nap lasting 30 to 60 minutes, ideally in the early afternoon.
But the danger lies in sleep inertia,
Yeah,
the grogginess, when you wake up from a nap and feel worse than before you lay down.
exactly. If you nap too long, your brain drops down into that N3 deep slow wave sleep we talked about.
Okay, the delta waves.
If your alarm wakes you up in the middle of N3, your cerebral cortex is still bathed in delta waves. The brain is chemically sluggish.
It's stuck in repair mode.
Right. The data dictates that athletes must wait a minimum of 60 minutes post-nap before exercising or competing to allow the adenosine and delta wave activity to fully clear. If you wake up from a deep nap and step right onto the court, your reaction time will be clinically impaired.
Which brings us to the most dangerous shortcut of all. Sleeping pills,
Pharmacology trap.
right?
It's a massive dilemma in sports medicine. Athletes are desperate for sleep, especially the night before a high-stakes event.
Of course.
But the World Anti-Doping Agency bans many sedatives, and the ones that are legally permitted are disastrous for performance.
So what exactly happens when someone takes a legal sleeping pill to guarantee 8 hours of rest?
Let's look at Z drugs like zolpidem or sedative antidepressants prescribed off-label like trazodone.
Okay.
These drugs work by globally suppressing the central nervous system, often binding to GABA receptors to force the brain to shut down.
But they work, right?
They will successfully increase your total sleep duration. But the clinical trials show a massive hangover effect.
Ah.
They cause significant next-day psychomotor impairment because the central nervous system is still partially suppressed.
So what does this all mean? The absolute irony is staggering.
It really is.
The very sleeping pill an athlete takes to ensure they are fully rested for an Olympic gold medal match could be the exact biological reason they lose.
Precisely.
Because their nervous system is chemically bogged down,
Yeah.
their reaction time to a starting gun, or their ability to track a 95-mile-per-hour fastball is chemically slowed down the next day.
They traded sharpness for duration.
It's a Faustian bargain.
Yeah, when milliseconds matter, the risks completely outweigh the benefits.
So what's the alternative?
That is why the researchers emphasize melatonin as the safest legal alternative.
Melatonin.
Yeah, melatonin isn't a sedative, it's a signaling hormone. It tells the brain it's time to sleep without artificially paralyzing the central nervous system.
Which avoids the hangover.
Right, it doesn't cause that psychomotor hangover, and it actually provides neuroprotective and antioxidant benefits that aid in muscular recovery.
It's all about working with the body's natural architecture instead of just bludgeoning it into submission with chemicals. Man, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We've redefined sleep from a passive off switch to a fiercely active state where your brain prunes synaptic connections and clears out metabolic exhaust.
A lot happens when your eyes are closed.
We've explored how N3 sleep floods the body with growth hormone, how sleep deprivation actually triggers cellular death by poking holes in your mitochondria, and how you can bank sleep for weeks to jump your performance by 9%.
It fundamentally changes how we should view our time in bed.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, there is a fascinating practical application to all of this data.
The takeaway.
Right. When you look at the sheer power of sleep loading those basketball players, jumping their accuracy by 9%, you have to wonder about the potential for everyone else.
Right.
So the provocative thought I want to leave you with is this. Think about your own life. If you know you have a high-stress event coming up, a massive presentation, a difficult conversation, or a physical challenge, what would happen if you didn't just try to sleep well the night before?
What if you banked it?
Exactly. What if you actively sleep loaded for the 2 weeks prior? How much sharper could your own performance be if you treated your sleep like an elite athlete treats their training camp?
It really makes you reconsider the cost of cutting corners.
It certainly does. You have to move away from seeing sleep as a weakness and realize it's the ultimate performance enhancer. You just have to be willing to take the dose. Thanks for diving deep with us today.